It's at the bottom. Okay, and we are live. There you go. That was instant. Welcome everyone, anyone who is joining either live or later to Books and Shit Presents, that's what I've decided to call it, the Black Fantasy Giveaway live stream. Thank you for joining. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Hey, we've got Jessica. Hello. Thank you for joining. This obviously is the live stream for a giveaway that we hosted 2 weeks ago to highlight some incredible writers and work in the Black fantasy realm. We all just happen to be female, so it's almost like a, vaginas rubbing. It's all good, it's doing great right now. So it's a real collective sisterhood right now that we're welcoming you guys to. So I will start off the introductions just because obviously hosting, being your moderator today. I am Charlotte Murphy, aka Charlie Author. The book in the collection that I'm contributing is Wolves of Duty, which is a paranormal drama fantasy. My tagline is Black Panther meets Pride and Prejudice. So if you've read it, great stuff. If you've not, I hope that entices you. We'll go along. So to me, it's Montrez, Margaret, Shalina, Katrina, Jessica. So we'll go round like that and everybody just do their introductions if that's okay. All right, let's go. Montrez.
Hey everybody, Montrez here, and if you love superheroes and sci-fi fantasy, I am your girl. Top shelf is what you're going to be getting. You're going to get my book Errant and Knockout with some character design if you win. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Sci-fi superheroes and some slow burn romantasy that's coming. So
hello, everyone. I am MJ. I write high action fantasy and sci-fi. The book that you'll be getting from me will be Marcario, Scepter, which is the first book in my pirate fantasy. So think Pirates of the Caribbean meets Indiana Jones. So very high paced. There's even a treasure hunting nun in there. It's a super fun story. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here. And yeah, I'm gonna pass it along.
Hi everyone, I'm S. McPherson. I write young adult and new adult fantasy romance. Lately I've been doing more new adult, and the latest book is called Fit for the Throne, which is probably my steamiest book as well. And I'm working on the sequel right now, and basically my books include hope, heart, heat, and high-paced, fast-paced, and high-intense fantasy. That would be me. Passing it on.
That was good, y'all. I got to step my game up. Well, let me think. No. I am Katrina N. Lewis. Yes, I use my government name, so that is me. You can find me on all social medias at Author KNL, and I write adult fantasy romance. And the book that I am donating to the giveaway is Heavy is the Head, Love and War, which is book 1 to my Heavy is the Head duology. It's romance, there's angst, there's all the good stuff, there's a little steam. And then I have Love Bites this way coming out June 1st. So yeah, and that is an adult vampire romance novella, also skinny. So I'm with you, Shalina. Passing it on.
Hello, my name is Jessica Cage, and I am an author of middle grade, YA, adult, spicy fantasy. I'm throughout fantasy, whatever the age, I'm there. The giveaway book that I'm doing today is Tales of Novia. It is a collection of stories inspired by TikTok creators that talks about the power of influence. So what one nosy little fairy does actually sparks a chain reaction that ends up threatening their entire world. So that's me.
Cool beans. Thank you so much for your introductions. Now, quickly, I just want to point out that there are and will be 12 books that the winner will receive, even though there are not 12 of us. Now, at the moment, this is some people, the timing didn't work out correctly. Just little things with techie stuff. So you will receive all 12 books, even though there's only 6 of us at the moment. If we get some more entries because of the time and stuff, that person will join in, but just so you know. Secondly, I will say I let the other guys know, but I am a little bit drunk. So if I am just a bit like over the top, please ignore me because I feel hot right now. Okay. And the third thing is we do have a comment section on YouTube if you are obviously watching live with us. So any questions you might have for the ladies or myself, or just anything about what we're discussing, please feel free to post in the comment section. We've got one comment at the moment that says, "I love Errant," and that's from Tina Capricorn. So fun stuff. What's it? Clicks, yeah, for Montrez with the Errant. So we're clicking, girl. We love it. We love it. So yeah, if you want to share anything with us, then please do so. We're going to go straight into the questions. You know, feel free to jump in once you've seen the question, and if you want to contribute. It says, diversity is important in fantasy. Why did you choose to represent it in your particular way? We'll go round the other way. So we'll start with Jessica and go the other way around. And, you know, just a few little bits on, you know, what your stories are about. And as the question, why did you choose to show your diversity in that way? Okay, let's go.
Oh, okay, my turn. So I grew up in a household that was with my grandmother, who was the book nerd, and my mother, who was like the sci-fi fantasy queen. She didn't read it, but she had all the movies and, you know, shows or whatever. And so it just kind of was like a blend of writing, and like my love of fantasy came from them. But when I would ingest these stories, whether they were in books or on the screen, and I grew up on the south side of Chicago. So like I go outside, I'm like, these stories don't look like my neighborhood. They don't look like my city. My mother made sure that we were in all areas of diversity. So we saw a lot of different walks of life. And then I would go back to this genre that I loved. I'm like, where are they? You know what I mean? Like, so then when I started writing, it was inspired by, well, when I started writing to publish, I'll say that it was inspired by like watching my younger cousins like love this Twilight vampire, you know, fanatic stuff. And it's just like this one little girl who's like got all these men telling her what she's supposed to be feeling. And I was like, that is not how life works. So my first story was a story of an alien race of vampires, but it was focused on 5 Black women at different stages of like their growth and power. And there were no men telling them how they felt or what they were supposed to do. Okay. It was all about like, how do we come into our power on our own? And then exploring that from 5 different minority characters, because they were all Black, Afro, Latina, you know what I mean? So it was like, let's represent the world that I see, and then let's give young women a realistic version of how you come into your own power.
Love that, love that, love that. Thank you for that sharing, because I think a lot of our responses will be the representation part. So thank you very much, Jess. Katrina, you're next up.
Yeah, very similar experience. So I grew up really loving Disney. I was like a Disney girl, like the fairy tales, the prince, and finding love and hope and all that stuff. And my dad, he's a big sci-fi nerd, and my mom, she's more horror, so maybe not my mom, but she, I mean, I grew up just like not seeing myself in these places, in these spaces. Again, I was a Twihard. I loved Twilight. I loved like, you know, the different fantasy, romantic things that I saw on TV. And it just like never was someone who looked like me. Um, and I just like literally got tired of it. I can remember, I always tell this story because I attribute it to my dad. And I went up to him, I think it was like a vampire book, maybe a fairy book. And I was like, Dad, like, how come there are no Black or brown characters in these books? I had to be like 12 maybe. And he was just like, well, I mean, if you want to change it, you got to be the change. You got to do what you want to see. And after that, I was just like, oh, all right, bet. Like, I'm start writing these books. So yeah, the representation piece was like really, really big for me.
Sorry, I was mid swallow, but I totally get that.
Not mid swallow, Charlie.
Yeah, let's not start that kind of conversation, okay? I'm so tipsy. Oh my God. Right. So no, that was wonderful. Like you said, if you be the change you want to see. Totally get that. Shalina, up next. What was your take for how you represent the way you do?
So in mine, I mean, I guess a lot of us are gonna have a similar thing. We grew up loving this genre, but didn't see many of ourselves in it. Like, yeah, I would read Twilight, of course, was like a big one. Even the Harry Potter series, stuff like that for me. And again, there wasn't much representation of people like me in them. And I enjoyed them, I loved them, but didn't necessarily feel that connected or relate in any way. And it's just like, yeah, there's this lack of representation. There was very little diversity of any kind in the books, but I absolutely loved them. So I kind of just wanted to see more of myself, but not just me. So I think growing up in Dubai, it's a very international place and it's very multicultural. There's like every race and religion and all these things. So it's kind of just always been the norm and it's never been a thing. And I feel like a lot of the books that I read that were Black or diverse kind of always centered around race. And I just wanted a nice story that wasn't around race, and they could just do all the nice fun things and have a fantasy realm and fight dragons and do all the fun things without it being about race. So I try to include like a lot of diverse characters in my books and just have them be themselves, just to be. So yeah, I think growing up here kind of helped that along. And that was kind of my motivation to just have more of like my experience growing up in my books.
Yeah, 100%. Totally love that. Just being the race thing. We'll go on to that with other questions I think we've got, but just that idea of being Black or other or brown or Latina just isn't an issue was a big thing for me as well. So Margaret, you're up next.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up because that was a major thing for me too. I grew up in New York, so it was also a very multicultural place. And I had a lot of multicultural friends and we all like to read the same books. It was a lot of fantasy and sci-fi books. And even when we were in elementary school, we would write books that would like feature us. You know, we would write like our own books and that used to be really fun. And now as an adult, having my own young children and my 11-year-old in particular, like devours books. And she also comes to me asking for, you know, recommendations on books. And I want to try to find books that feature her. So that was definitely a driver for me, but also I took a lot of inspiration from Shonda Rhimes. I loved Grey's Anatomy and Private Practice. And, you know, like the others were saying, race wasn't a thing. It was like, if you had a character, she could be anybody or he could be anybody, but just happened to be a person of color. So they were smart, they were driven, they were brave. Oh, and they happen to be Black, and oh, they happen to be Asian, oh, they happen to be Hispanic. So that's the approach that I take with the books that I write in a genre that I love. I grew up watching Indiana Jones and Star Wars and Star Trek. Both of my parents were really super big nerds on that. So that's kind of the inspiration I take from that. But diversity to me is super important, and I want to see it just as normal, as just normal characters and not saying they're necessarily Black or they're necessarily Hispanic and not have it to be focused around race. They're just, like you said, doing the things that they love to do, having fun, falling in love, getting their heart broken, going on adventures and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's the approach I take with my writing.
Totally agreed on that one. No comment, just agreed. Montrose, your go.
Hey everyone. So yeah, we were another household that was just sci-fi, you know, like when sci-fi they had like Saturdays and then just in general. My dad was into comics, so I fell in love with X-Men. And actually superheroes actually started kind of my journey for writing and inspired it because what I loved about the X-Men was how one character might not be your thing, but there was a character in there for everybody. And the X-Men were very diverse. You had Storm, you had all these different characters. And to see how they could bring just like a whole community of people together where you can get lost in for hours talking about these characters, that's something that I wanted to incorporate in my writing. And so just having that natural representation where people come from all walks of life and then knowing too that you know as a Black woman we're not a monolith. As Black people we're not a monolith. We're not just one thing. We don't have just one experience. And even if we have similar experiences, we don't all turn out the same way. And so I really wanted to show, because I feel like especially with traditional publishing, they only show us in a certain light or in a certain way in certain stories. And so I wanted to celebrate just how different and beautiful we all are. So I have characters that I feel like we don't talk much about, especially in Black representation. We're not all loud. We're not all like sassy sidekicks. Some of us are quiet. Some of us are introverts. Some of us are sensitive. Some of us are nerdy. Some of us can't dance, you know? So just combating those stereotypes. I can't dance, you know? So just combating little things like that and just showing the nuances and the beauty in our culture, because we're not a monolith and everybody deserves to see themselves no matter how they look, how they live, or what they like. And I just want to include that.
No, thank you for that. That's definitely a massive one. Like, we're not just all one thing. We might have a lot of shared experiences. I know when I talk to Katrina and stuff, and we will say certain quote unquote Black things, and it's just like we are thousands of miles apart, but we've all done the same thing. We've all done the cookout, and we've all done the Sunday Baptist church thing. Like, there are certain things that are very quintessentially Black or quintessentially Latino or brown. Like, we get all of that, but it's not the be all and end all for everybody, and I think that's truly important. Lastly, for my book, one thing that I did want to add on top of everybody else's really great point is that mine was a conscious effort to not have a struggle narrative. So the big thing about representation, all that good stuff was true. I'm obviously the British one in the group. Shalina is British by way of Dubai, so it's a little bit different. But no, I obviously grew up in and around the classics. So everything about, Tolkien and, Jane Austen, all this kind of elements of fantasy or romance was, very much about that British culture. And none of that featured Black or brown people. But when it did, she or he was a servant of some kind, or, had been brought over from somewhere, because this is 18 whatever, so they obviously have to be a slave. And, there was just this kind of thing. So when I've decided to write Wolves, my main thing was just that these people were going to be Black, and they were going to be beautiful. They were going to be unapologetically Black. And it was going to be a sense of, yes, the word or hashtag Black excellence. They were all going to be rich, educated, intelligent, smart, just, of a high caliber, which I really wanted to feature. And that their problems were personal and emotional and all these other things, not anything to do with them being Black and anything to do with them being brown. And even the world that they live in, the continent they're on, is just the Africa of my world, in the sense of that's the hub of Black people. But it's not to say that if they leave their continent and go to, say, the Europe of their world, it's how is this Nubian here? Like, no, we know they live and we know they exist. Like, it's not a shock for them to be here, which really irritates me when I read certain things. It's like, oh, they're Black and they're in here, but it's still, how are you here? Kind of, no. These people just exist. And that was really important to me. That was what I wanted to represent in my way. Moving swiftly along, I moved the questions about a bit because I think it was Shalina. Sorry, I've lost it now. Either Shalina or Montrez mentioned about the traditional publishing element. So I'm going to go with this question that Katrina did for us. What role can self-publishing play in ensuring diverse voices are heard and represented in the publishing industry? How should we do this one? So let's start with Margaret and go down and along and up and down. Let's mess it up. Let's do that. So yeah, questions on the bottom. Let us know what you think of that.
Sounds good. I think self-publishing definitely plays a huge role in making sure diverse voices are heard, because there aren't any gatekeepers, right? And not only aren't any gatekeepers, but we are also our own entrepreneurs. We are our own business people. So it's not also managing the creative, but also managing the business, which I feel like puts an edge over people who are traditionally published and may not necessarily have to handle the business side of it. I know a lot of times people think self-publishing is easy, or it's like the easiest route because there is no gatekeepers, but it's a full-time job. It can legit be a full-time job, right? And not only ensuring our voices are heard, but making sure that we are marketable in the marketplace too, like giving people, what they want to see, but in a way that is in our voice. So I think self-publishing definitely paved the way. And as we get more and more advanced and indie publishers, because when I started, it was, self-publishers, but now it's more of that indie route, right? Which I think is a little bit better. I think it's a little bit better than self-publishing. But I think that it really helps us establish ourselves not only as authors, but also as entrepreneurs and also as a brand, which I think is also really important too.
Thank you, Margaret. Definitely all the good stuff. Branding is a big one, but I want to touch on that a bit, obviously, later when we get to Jessica, because we're all very much aware that Jessica has the kind of biggest reach of all of us. So that is going to be a big thing to kind of discuss as to how you got to kind of that stage in your thing, but we'll get there later. Shalina, you're good.
So yeah, a lot of what Margaret's already said. Basically, I would say that without the gatekeeper, it just opens doors to us. We can find our target audience through social media, and then we can, put the things out there that we know that they will relate to because we relate to it. And then, they can come along with us on the journey of it. And then when the book comes out, they can go ahead and buy it. And Amazon has, made that very easy for us to set that up and, get the things done. Obviously, it takes a lot of work and there's a lot that goes into it, but it's a way that we can get our voices out there without being like, oh no, that's too Black, or, how about you throw in this character that's a bit more widely acceptable or anything like that. It's a bit more flexible and free and just gives us that avenue and a direct connection to our target audience who want to read those books. So I think that's definitely a way that self-publishing has helped. That would be my take on it.
Montrez, we're going that way. So Montrez, what do you think?
So I want to say the biggest answer is creative control. We, pretty much what everyone else has been saying, but you don't have somebody looming over you saying, hey, change that. You don't have enough spice in it, or no one's going to understand that, or people don't want that. So you don't have kind of like, I don't want to say that negativity, but you don't have that filter. You have more of a freedom to be as different and as raw, or, whatever you want to be. And I think that with self-publishing, you can fill those gaps and those holes that that traditional publishing has left. Like, I feel like traditional publishing, they find something and then they just copy and paste it. I want to say they're kind of lazy, and so I think self-publishing, especially when we're able to produce those quality works that people really enjoy and that they find and that really resonate, that sends a message to traditional publishing. Hey, step up your game. This is, people want more than what you're providing. And a lot of times you'll find that traditional publishers will try to snag up successful independent authors and traditionally republish their work or publish their future works. And so I think what we offer is that fresh voice. We kind of can make the mainstream more alive with fresher works that people want to see that maybe they didn't know they wanted, or that readers have been asking for that the mainstream publishing just isn't providing. And I think that's the fun. We can experiment, and we have the freedom to kind of do what we want that we've seen just wasn't offered.
Sorry, I keep forgetting to unmute, but yes, agreed. Definitely hear you. Katrina, you're up next.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with all these ladies here. I think another big piece is, and Montrez touched on it beautifully, is it's us telling our own stories in the way that we want to tell them. And doing so, we can, kind of, I banged on my table. I was getting passionate there and the computer started shaking. And doing so, we can kind of like change the narrative of what is, published, what audiences want to see. There's this narrative that Black stories don't sell, and we know that is not true whatsoever. So our self-published voices help debunk those things, because we're all here, we're all successful, and we're telling stories that we want to see, that we know audiences do want to see, and they want to consume and want to buy. So yeah, that creative control, that being able to tell our stories our own way, and pushing against sometimes what the traditionally published narrative is about Black stories. Because as we know, as we see in our libraries and, you know, online on Amazon, Black books typically center around race or teaching white people how not to be racist. Um, and that is not all of what we want to see or write or hear about. So self-publishing definitely helps add diversity to, you know, what we all love and enjoy, books.
Definitely giving clicks, giving clicks, giving clicks. What I wanted to touch on is excuse my fuzzy brain, but Katrina did obviously mention it, is the kind of part about, oh, that's it, saying there's not a space for Black fantasy. And again, coming from a British perspective, one of the kind of conversations that I have with Katrina a lot and just to other people is that there's a divide anyway, and then, you know, an issue with distribution and stuff just across the board, across the business, but also between regions. So for example, you guys being all American, or four of the five of you, will get your Evan Winters and your Tracy Dion's, and you'll get them in hardcover. As in, that will just be in your Barnes and Nobles, and, you know, as in, you guys have a much bigger spectrum of Black fantasy than we do over here. So when we get it, it's either not done in hardcover, like it doesn't get that run. We only get the paper. We only get the paperback. So when it comes to, I'll go on TikTok and, you know, you fall into a hole of Black TikTok or whatever it is. And there's all these books that I have legitimately never heard of. And there is a whole world of Black American women who are devouring this shit. And it's like, oh my gosh, because I want to be devouring it too, but I don't know it exists. So as much as there's a divide just as a publishing industry, it's so frustrating being over here, because there are books that I want to know about, that I would like to read, that I am definitely interesting, that is for me, quote unquote, but are not being given to me. And this is a massive, massive problem, because that's a marketing thing. That's a money being invested in pushing it into crowds that will want to read it, that are interested in it, kind of thing. Like, a big example, we are all watching Queen Charlotte right now. Anyone who is not watching Queen Charlotte, I don't know where you've been, okay? But because that has come off the back of Bridgerton, which admittedly
Jessica Hyde.
and we know Shonda wrote it, and that's wonderful. She's just the queen at the minute. But obviously that's come off what was initially kind of a white platform in terms of the setting and all that kind of stuff. It's just been cool that they've put colored people in it and whatever, you know, like it was still a bit of a fad, if we can admit that. And that is frustrating, because it's just like, oh, so you've put something in this platform and now suddenly it's acceptable, and now off the back of that, which is good, it will be pushed out more, and brown is cool and Black is cool and all of these things are cool. But it's just like, we have to wait for an almost bigger platform to say yay before everybody gets to see it. And that was just my main, when Katrina was talking, that was just my main thought, because I see so many books from amazing writers, even, and she's going to come after me, so I'm going to mention Jessica. I'd not been aware of Jessica's platform, even though it's quite big, but Katrina introduced me to her and her work and this kind of thing, because Katrina's American, and there's almost like a little American bubble that I wasn't privy to. But then through this giveaway, I've now met other people and I followed them, and now I've seen this whole world that did not exist to me 2 weeks ago. I did not see any of this 2 weeks ago, and that is absolutely shocking. Like, for me personally, because I guess I could do the work to find it, but also that's not what was being thrown at me. Fourth Wing is being thrown at me. Akatar is being thrown at me. All of this other shit is being thrown at me, but not the thing I want to see. So that was my thing. I went on, but Jessica, you're up next with the your response.
I feel like I shouldn't speak now because of the Queen Charlotte. Like, I've never seen any of that stuff. I was like, oh, I'm over here watching Demon Slayer. I'm sorry.
You gotta watch it. It's great.
We watch Demon Slayer too.
But no, I would say that the role that we play as indie publishing or self-publishing authors is that we have a conversation with the readers, right? I feel like publishers, they wait for trends to happen. They wait for, and then, oh, wait, now people want to have Black magical girls. Let's go get that, right? But indie authors, most of us started off as just readers in general, right? We didn't start off as a publisher who had to fill a quota, right? We just were readers and we saw a need. But we didn't leave the reading side alone. Like, we all have a TBR that will never end. We all have our, reading buddies. We're still in conversations with people. We're still listening to what people want. It's just kind of like with the trigger warnings. You know what I mean? Like, years ago, people weren't putting trigger. I had a book. I was like, I'm not putting no trigger warning. But then in these conversations, we listen to the readers and they're like, yo, I really can't take it. My mental, like, I want to read the book, but I need to know ahead of time. And that was a big thing, right? But now every book comes with like a intro of all the possible triggers and content warnings because we listen to our audience, right? It's the same thing with diversity. We are having the conversations. Like, someone mentioned, like, okay, they Black, they just happen to be Black. That's how my stories are. I've had people come to me like, girl, these characters, I don't even, they're not Black enough. I'm like, baby, those are me and my friends. If we're not Black enough, I don't know what to tell you because that's not who we are. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're having the conversation. We're involving the readers in a lot of these projects. Like my Tales of Novia, my readers named the locations. We were on TikTok live together. They were sending me people to inspire different, characters and stuff. So it's this conversation that we're having day to day with the audience that really gives us the impact that I believe is shifting, what traditional publishing is trying to do now. And now they're scrambling, trying to catch up with what we're just doing naturally.
Sorry, unmute again. No, totally agree. Like, even with what you mentioned at the end about, if we're not Black enough for you kind of thing. I've had people say to me about wolves. My friend, I think she might be online actually. I forget they're Black is a sentence I get. I didn't realize what they look like. And I'm like, okay, when you read white books, do you forget that they're white? Like, do you question or wonder, oh yeah, they're white. Yeah. I'll remember. Like, what? Nobody does that. Nobody does that real. So that misconception that you're supposed to kind of do that when you're reading Black people is where, even as readers, when we're reading other things, where we can get a bit like, that's not really that's not really true for life. So sticking with what is real to and for us is so important, because I think I said at the top of the show, we have a lot of shared experiences, but where we then get the ones that are a bit different is where the fun can come in. I put up some comments from what a few of you have said. Aya has said, I tried to get the special edition of We Are Origin. That is one of the books that is available in the giveaway by, sorry, I forgot, what's Chelsea's last name? I was going to say Melanin, but that's her fucking
Lockhart.
Yeah, I'm stuck on everybody's usernames, but yes, Chelsea Lockhart, that's one of the books that are available. She said, but the shipping fees were triple the price of the book. And yes, we haven't got all the money, so things like that will be a deterrent for some people. Do you know what I mean?
I just even want to say really quickly, I can remember when you, Charlie, wanted to get special editions of certain books, and because our time difference, I would literally wake up. She'd be like, Katrina, wake up. The special edition is available. I need a US address. Can I use yours? And I'm like, yes, just buy the book, Charlie. But like, that experience of what she was talking about is we've done it on a number of occasions at this point, of her trying to access or tap into this US fantasy market that isn't accessible to people not in the United States. And then another really quick point, because I'm a graduate sociology degree, so my head always goes to like this sociological standpoint. When you mentioned that sometimes readers will say, "Oh, not Black enough," or "I forgot that they were Black." I think that us being self-published authors and writing books to where readers forget that the characters are Black, or didn't realize how Black they were. The idea of that a character like white, what I'm basically trying to say, white is the default. So whenever we're reading something, even though we may not consciously do it, our default is, well, no, not my default. My default is she's a Black queen. she got braids, she got a fro. But most people's defaults, I am presuming here, are that the characters are white. But I think it's just such a beautiful thing to hear someone who's picked up this incredibly black ass book in Wolves, because Wolves is black, blackety black. And for someone to say, I forgot that they were black, I'm like, wow, that really changes like the idea of this white being the default. Or, oh, I didn't describe her or the character in such description. Oh, she had chocolate skin and caramel macchiato hair. That's, you know. I just thought that that was really beautiful to read this incredibly black book and to say, I forgot they were black, because that was their default. Oh, their default was, this book is incredible. I didn't even remember what their race was. So yeah, just wanted to hop in and say that.
And sorry, I just want to add, for the special editions, I use this thing called Shop and Ship by Aramex. So you do have to pay. I mean, it's free to get, and it gives you an address in the US. It gives you an address in the UK, because obviously I'm in Dubai. It gives you an address like all over the world, and then you can use that, and it's the same cost as it's shipping locally, because it's that address. But then you do have to pay for them to ship to wherever you actually are. But it, depending on what you're getting, it's actually not too bad. So just for anyone that's wondering, that's how I do it. I go through Shop and Ship, Aramex. That is all.
Wonderful. Let me know the obviously link of that, and I'll put it in the description of the live and stuff. So if anyone wants to check that out later. So thank you.
Okay,
We've got someone joining us. Hold on. Hello. We've got R.A. Moreau joining us today. How are you? Can she hear us? I'm not sure she can, but once you hear us, let us know how you're doing. So I'm just going to go back to the comments while she sorts that out. So we had someone say that was Tina Capricorn. She said she didn't know about UK publishing. So that's another thing, just that lack of understanding on both sides. So when people are like, oh, you haven't read this, girl, I didn't know about this. So, you know, don't judge. And then what did she say? It's always in paperback. Ooh, it's always in paperback, and we never get nice covers. We always get a bit of a shit cover. I'm sorry, guys, but we do. Janine Batiste says, I used to think I had to only write just white neurotypical characters, and my first series I tried writing had that default. Glad I changed that for my current series. Yep, Shalina, did you want to say something? Yeah. Go.
I was just saying that I did the same thing. For my first series, the lead lady was white, and then she had a black best friend.
No, I will say, any of you that have read Antonides Legacy, I went with the what's that word? Palatable black. And I don't mean that to be judgmental at any point, but she was, you know, she was golden and she was light skinned and she had curly hair and her eyes were green, and it was all this kind of thing that she was just balancing on this level of racial ambiguity. I did that as well. I definitely did that as well. And when I started with Wolves, I was just like, no, we're not doing that. And that's not to say that we don't have our wonderful light-skinned queens as well. Yes, we do. But it was just the idea that you had to write a female character of this hue to make it more, as I said, palatable for people to accept. And I think we all kind of went through that stage of, you know, is she too dark? Like, you know, we can't really do that kind of thing. So that's important to share. Janine has also said, my family does a similar method. Send it to a mainland family member and then send to another land. So yes, this is in terms of shipping and that kind of thing. So if anybody's got any, you know, hacks and stuff, let us know. And last comment just before our next question. For a weird time, a lot of people associated Black fantasy with African authors. Very true. Which, as a reader, was frustrating because authors who didn't have African sounding names, so they weren't being promoted. Okay, I think I see where you're going with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
My name is hella American. No one thinks, you know, Heavy is the Head has any type of like African inspired mythology. Yes. Yes, she is. Yes, I felt that.
I felt that in my chest. No, the African thing was a big one for me writing Wolves as well, because I have a Caribbean background. I'm Jamaican, so a lot of the fantasy that I did get exposed to early on was kind of West African based, you know, which was wonderful in itself. There's actually no issue there. It was just more like I felt like only West Africanness was blackness, and it was being pushed down my throat, whether it was Children of Blood and Bone or a psalm of, oh gosh, a psalm of something, Roseanne Brown,
Raised
or
in Ruin.
Wraiths and Ruin. Thank you very much. There were just a few titles that it was, black meant African Orisha mythical lore. And as beautiful as that was to learn, any type of genre, if you get too much of it, it's now overkill. And there are other ways to embrace blackness. A big example being MJ McGriff, so Margaret's Marcario's Scepter is pirates. It's a pirate adventure with black people. I want pirates. I don't always want to be in the dusty savannah. I want pirates, bitch. Like, let's do pirates, let's do mermaids, let's do all that stuff. And
not dusty savannah.
It's just always hot. Like, it's just always hot. And to mean where black means it has to be sand. And it's just like, okay, maybe they might live in the Bronx. Like, come on, it doesn't have to be sand. But no, that point with Io is really true. We've got some comments here, so we'll go through. I like African mythology based fantasy, honestly, but there's a lot more fantasy that can be done as well. We are all in agreement. Ray Bearer, yes, I read that duology. I wasn't a fan, I'm sorry. But I did read that duology, which is good. We've got some Rex here. Wings of Ebony. I've not started, but that's on my shelf. And then lastly, it feels very West Indian, honestly, regarding the Magian series. Oh, there you go. So, Margaret, do you want to let us know a bit about pirates since we've touched on it now?
Yeah, because, my experience, I have an Afro-Latina background. So my mother was Black, but she was born and raised in Cuba and came over here. So I'm the first American born here in my family. So we had all shades speaking Spanish. And living in New York, that was normal. But then I moved to North Carolina and I'm like, that's not normal, So that I wanted to honor that because I didn't see a lot of that. They're Black, but there can also be some Caribbean influences. There can be Caribbean influence on the Spanish side, especially with my treasure hunting nun, because Cubans were raised Catholic. So people don't think that Catholics can be Black, so that is my experience with that. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that and I celebrated that and having all those different shades and mythologies and all of that was super important to me. So that's why, yes, it has that West Indian. And people forget that Cuba is part of the Caribbean. So they think Cuba is kind of like separate from the rest of the Caribbean. But you go to the Caribbean, there's Jamaicans, there's Haitians, there's people of Asian descent, because a lot of Chinese used to hang out in the islands as well. So you have that mix in there too. So like we were saying at the top, we are not a monolith. We are so many different things. And I'm glad that we're able to write the stories that can highlight and celebrate those.
No, definitely agree. Thank you so much. Like you said, Cuba is in the West Indies. It's like you can take a boat from Jamaica, which I have done, which is wonderful. Before we kind of move on with some other things, as I said, R.A. Moreau, can you hear us now? It's a bit delayed, but we can't hear you. Oh, unmute. No, we can't hear you. Oh, it's not gonna. Well, once you work out your audios and stuff, we'll do a quick introduction with you, obviously, because you've joined a little bit late. But her book is obviously available for the giveaway, which we are going to reveal the winner of in just a few moments. Janine Batiste says, my own writing tends to be more based on futurism as well as tropical based settings like the West Indies, Caribbean. Big ups. Io says, a really nice mermaid book. Oh, who's that? Oh, is that the delayed audio?
Is that now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Love it.
Welcome. Hello. We'll pause the comments for the moment. Hold on, let me just take this off, darling. We'll pause the comments for the moment so you can say hi. Welcome. Introduce yourself.
Hi,
your book. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I think my brain has been melting this week and I just assumed, I think, thought it was at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard, but it's not. Anyways, I'll introduce myself. My name is R.A. Moreau. I am a new indie author, and the book that's included in this set for me is The Fall of Souls, which is a Nubian fantasy romance. So definitely understood where you guys were coming from on the African mythology. I feel like I felt tied to that in my first novel, but I think I'm going to move away from that moving forward. So, yeah, I couldn't get off of mute though, but figured it out. So happy to be here. Hi, everybody.
No, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Obviously, we're all in these crazy time zones, so thank you so much for taking the time. We were just going through some of the comments quickly, but then we're going to go on to like a bit of the fun question, and then we'll do the winner reveal, and I think we'll be done. But it says, sorry, Io says, a really nice mermaid book is by a British Trinidadian that I've forgotten her name, but she also doesn't get named. The Mermaid of Black Conch or Conch. So I'll Google that and put that in the description. So if anyone wants to check that out, that is good. Janine Baptiste says she has Caribbean influences as well as Filipino, as well as June is Caribbean Heritage Month. I did not know that. So I might plan some, content for social media. And lastly, Elisa Brown says Afrofuturism can't be beat. I dig that. I mean, depending how people feel about AI at the minute, I've seen some wonderful AI art in terms of Afrofuturism. And as I said, we won't go down that thing against AI for AI, blah, 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 blah. That's not a fight we're trying to have today. But it does look pretty cool. Let's go on to our next question. So what I thought was a fun one that Katrina gave us was, how do you approach writing romance in a fantasy setting? Any unique challenges while doing this? Because a lot of our books are based around a romance or, Black romantasy. Some of people do spice, some don't, spicier than others. How do you feel? Because you've just joined us, we'll let Moreau go first, R.A. Moreau go first, and just let us know how you approach the romance element of your book.
Sure. I think one of the challenges that I find, I mean, being that I've only written one novel and currently working through the second, I think the most challenging part for me with a fantasy romance is kind of like making sure that like action plot line is lining up nicely and timing with the romance plot line. I feel like when you read just a romance novel, it's a lot easier because you know what to expect as a reader. Like it's a romance. The end goal is they get together. But when you're doing a fantasy romance, there's also that extra layer of like, there's some kind of like event happening in the background, or maybe even in the foreground, depending on what you're doing. But I think I tend to kind of plot them separately to make sure that the timing of those is how I want it to be. They might not match one for one, but plotting out my like fantasy action through line and then also plotting out my romance through line separately from each other helps me a lot, but it's also really challenging. So I think that's kind of how I view that.
Thank you so much. Who wants to go next? Should we go around that way? Jessica, and then we'll go Katrina, Shalina, Margaret. One choice.
I really don't put a big emphasis on romance. I don't really care for it that much. I feel like there's too much going on. One of the things that always bothers me, or that used to bother me more so than now, is like this big romance that's supposed to be happening while the world is ending. And I'm like, girl, you don't have time to be thinking about none of that. You know what I mean? And even with my Siren series, which is a urban mermaid story, the character is like, y'all trying to get me to pick a boyfriend. Like, I'm trying to run from my daddy. He trying to kill me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't got time for this. So a lot of the times, if there is romance, it's very minimum and it's like in the background, and readers will cling to the little bit of like, oh my God, they're in love. Like I had two characters kiss one time, and I still get people emailing me like, they kissed. Oh my God, it's so much. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But the dragon is about to burn everybody. Like that's more important. So it's there, but I don't really, I might sprinkle with it, but I don't really go too deep into it. So
sorry, I really enjoyed that. I was laughing the whole way through because it's so true. Sorry, not to cut obviously the way it's gonna go round, but I was literally speaking to Katrina the other day about, I was just like, girl, like romantasy is popping off. I need to write a romantic. what do you mean? Like, you've written romance, you've written fantasy. It's me, no, it's not the same, because Wolves for me is about the drama, and it's about, you know, the politics dropping down and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, cool, there's a sexy guy in it and you doing it, but that's not what's important, my guy. Like, let's put this to the side. So, you know, I'm here with you on that one. I do love the romance. I'm the first one to just latch on to, they gonna kiss, they gonna kiss. Like, I'm ready. But in terms of my writing, I am much more the drama plot based as opposed to the romance side. So I just thought that was really, really funny. Thank you for that. Katrina, the queen of romantasy. Let's go.
So yeah, no, I try. Y'all know me. I'm a pantser. I'm trying to be reformed here, you know, and plot some things out. But it is a struggle. So you said trying to match up the drama world ending portions with, you know, the fantasy. I mean, the romance, the kisses, the stolen glances, you know, all that good stuff. But yeah, no, I wish I had a better answer. I am really like, I'm trying to be a reformed pantser. I'm trying to outline things now so that I don't have to make it make sense so much later down the line. Because that's what I've been doing. Like I'm about to go into astrology. I am a Sagittarius with Gemini energy in my big three. So I could be I could be shoot from the hip. But yeah, no, I wish I had a better answer. I'm a pantser. I make it make sense at the end.
Oh, I love you so much. Shalina, you'll go.
Okay, so for me, I love fantasy. Fantasy is my ultimate favorite, but romance is like a very, very close second. So I love them to overlap. Like I said, my first series was my safer series, so it was less steamy. It had the Caucasian main character and all that kind of stuff. But as I've gotten more comfortable and confident in my writing, my series has progressed. Of course, now we have Black main characters and love interests and stuff like that. And for me, I love enemies to lovers. So for me, usually the fantasy and the romance are very closely entwined because they're your enemy in this death-defying stunt and fighting on dragons and stuff. But oh no, you're falling in love with the person that's trying to kill you on back of the dragon. So I love them to be really closely entwined. And I always think of the conflict first, I would say, of like, okay, you like this person, but what is the fantastical element that is going to keep you apart? And how are you going to overcome it? And what is going to happen? And in fantasy, anything can happen. So I just love the expanse of it. The stakes are always higher in the romance. The will they, won't they, that kind of always impacts it as well, because again, the world is ending and they're your enemy, probably, usually. So yeah, that would be my angle of how can I tie them in together, but they can't be together. And then another trope that I love is also the mate trope, which is something that you don't get in contemporary. Obviously, it's a fantasy trope. So sometimes it's also like, well, maybe your mate is your enemy, and that's another fun little fantasy twist on romance. So that's, yeah, I love that kind of aspect of it.
No, I'm still not muted. No, that's wonderful. I definitely agree with that one. Margaret, your go. How do you approach the fantasy?
Real quick, ask me. Sagittarius is a lifestyle. It is.
Oh my goodness. I am so on with Jessica on this one because I am not big on the romance either. I need things to blow up. I need things to be falling apart. I need like big battle scenes. But I will say the fantasy that I do, the romance that I do write in the fantasy though, my favorite has to be enemies to lovers, because I'm like, okay, let me start them out totally hating each other. And what is the most unlikely pair? Like in Marcario Scepter, this is like they were exes and they have to work together. Like they were left, like he left her and they have to come back and work together. Okay, now go. You know, so that I can kind of do, and I make my characters work for their romances at the end. So there's really not a steamy factor or an instant love or we're faded. And I think the cheeriest thing I have going on, I think, is in the follow-up book in the Secret Library, where, you know, the nice character gets her love interest, but it's the guy who's trying to arrest her. So there's still some conflict in there, you know, but for me, romance is hard. If you need me to write a battle scene, a fight scene, somebody's dying, something's blowing up, I can bang it out all day. Romance, I'll be on that scene for like 2 weeks. It's hard. It's just hard for me, but I like reading it though. So
yeah, I mean, you've said it's hard, but I've read Marcario Scepter, and I'm sorry that like enemies to lovers is obviously the basis of the trope, but that X is I still love him. I don't know if he loves me, but I'm not gonna admit it until he does type shit. It was good, my sister.
Thank you. Thank you.
I dug it. I dug it. So you might not think you're doing your best, but we're gonna give some clicks. Okay, we're gonna give some
Thank
clicks.
you.
Montrez, how about you?
Okay, so yes, if you've read Errant, romance is not a big portion of that. I do have some like more fantasy, romantic-y stuff coming, but I think for me, what helps me with romance or any other type of relationship, I like to focus on love because there are so many ships outside of romance or even elements of romance. If you just focus on like those different types of relationships, like bromance, who doesn't love a good bromance? Found family. You know, there's so many things in fantasy outside of romance or that complement romance. So for me, if I add romance, I try to make it a more genuine, natural, and realistic element. I'm not going to try to force it because I too prefer, I'm more comfortable writing like the action, the adventure, the magical elements. And so for me, I just want to make sure that it's a genuine, realistic type of romance. I don't just want to throw it in there. Like in my book, Errant, she's still learning, the main character is learning to love herself first. You know, so her even recognizing the signs that somebody may be into her, like for the first half of the book, she thinks this guy hates her. And that's why he's so quiet and silent and stuff. And so, you know, making sure that any romantic element is genuine, it's realistic, it's not forced, and then having fun adding all those other ships because even with romance, you know, you're not on an island, especially if the world is ending. So there's other things that you can add, other elements that I like to explore as well. So I try to focus on just love and then in the romance, making it genuine. So yeah.
And that's a good one. I really appreciate that because, like you said, bromances and sisterhoods and brotherhoods are, you know, they encompass love and not just the sexual romance part of something. That's really really good. I won't take too long on my answer because we'll do the winner reveal in a moment. But romance for me, for Wolves of Duty, which is the book that you receive if you win, romance was more a part of the plot at this point, not because it was about their love, but it was more so about what loving someone properly allowed her to become. So it wasn't just, oh, I need to love this guy and now we're in love, we're together. It was more, wow, once I've discovered a true love, an unselfish love, a genuine love, what am I going to have to go up against to protect that at all costs? And where that kind of gets a mix up with some people, because, you know, my tagline is led by, sorry, what is it? Where's the book? Driven by duty. Led by love. So her initial drive in life is this, but love made her question things. But that doesn't mean that the duty isn't still there, hence the title. So where I struggled with the romance in Honor, which is the sequel, was that a lot of people were expecting it to be the Aspen and X show, and that's not what it's about anymore. You know, she loves him, that's great, but there is a bigger, wider reaching plot going on here now where we'll love each other later, but as Jessica said, the world is falling apart, we got to fix it. Ain't nobody got time for this, like, do you know what I mean? So that was a big thing. But I'll stop there. So where's our question? So we'll hide that. Are we ready to share our winner, guys? Give me an excitement. So I'm going to try and do some techie stuff. Yay, clicks. Thank you. I'm going to try and do some techie stuff. So bear with me. Share screen. Hopefully this will just work fine. Share. All right, everyone let me know if you can see it as well, yeah? Can everyone see this wheel? Oh, hold on. Oh, wait, hold on. No, not new tab. Right. Yeah, unmute and just let me know you can see it when I'm on a different tab. You can, yeah? All right. So just in the idea that everybody can see it.
I can't see it.
You can't see it. Okay. So sharing this tab to StreamYard, view tab. I'm assuming everyone else can. It says, oh, donut. I have to add it to stream. Oh, there you go. Right.
Yes.
Can we see it now? Yes, we can. Okay, cool. Let's go. Let's take these ads away because fuck these businesses. All right, so we're ready. I'm just going to click it. First person. So just so people know, these are the people who we've collated who we believe have done all the points. So they followed somebody. So they followed all the giveawayers. I can't think of the word. They've tagged, and then a share is like a bonus. So we will do the name, and if you've done all those things, then you will be a winner. If you've not done all those things, then we may have to spin again. Okay, so just so everybody's clear. 3, 2, 1, let's go. It's tense, guys. It's tense. Who do we got? Oh. Is it? Hey, we have a winner. Mad.eve.p is our winner. I'm going to take a screenshot of this just so we all know. Hold on. Let me go back here. Stop sharing. All right. Is everybody back in? We're all clear now. There's no sharing. Good. Okay, so that is our winner. Congratulations to mad.evep. I will obviously put that on Instagram to what's the word, to notify you. I can't find my words today. To notify you about your giving us your address or where you want us to send the prizes and all this kind of things. There may be some swag depending on what other people are doing. Thank you so much for everybody who has joined today live, everybody who is just watching this maybe afterwards. We appreciate you so much. I appreciate everybody joining today. Montrez, Margaret, Shalina, Katrina, Jessica. Don't know Maria's first name, but we love you too. Thank you so much. Remy?
Yeah.
Oh, Remy, good. I did hear you. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Remy. And thank you for everybody for even taking part on the giveaway. It's a lot to follow people and tag and all that good stuff. But this was a wonderful talk. And I hope, after giveaways, people just like unfollow other people. But I hope everybody who has followed stays for the ride and stays for the show, because we'll do more things like this and we'll have fun and we'll just, celebrate in our Blackness and our womanness. And it will just be a wonderful thing. So thank you all for joining. I hope you had a wonderful time. Me and the girls are going to have a little cool down after this. But thank you so much for joining, and we'll speak to you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.